Hi everyone, welcome to week 1 and chapter 1. I try to provide these audios as an accompaniment to the PowerPoints that I take from our chapters, kind of highlighting the key points that I have found when reading through the chapters and ones that I really want us to focus on for any given week. I think the audios kind of give a little bit different perspective as opposed to the PowerPoints, especially those of you that are more auditory learning style versus visual learning style. I will try to keep our PowerPoints very short and sweet and to the point. However, I cannot always say that with the audios because I sometimes get really passionate about a topic and will tend to ramble on. This particular week, we are covering chapter 1, global health and health transitions. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm a little rusty. I haven't done these audios for about a month and a half now, and I just can't seem to get it together. So little rusty, little bit of a struggle here, so bear with me. So we'll start off with definitions of health and global health. According to the World Health Organization, which we will be referencing quite a bit, health can be described as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being and not merely the absence of a disease or infirmity. Global health is referring to health concerns that are not only local, not only community-based or nationally based, but span across international borders. Health transitions. These are things that have kind of caused certain health outcomes globally. And one thing about these audios is I will always kind of give you a little cue if something is possibly going to be on a quiz or a final exam. I'm not really big on tests, but we do have a final exam in this class, and I will always kind of warn you if there's a possibility that something that I am talking about could be on the exam. So health transitions is one of those. You can read through these on your own, but the main health transitions that we will focus on in this particular chapter and in this class are the demographic transitions, the epidemiologic transitions, fertility transitions, and nutrition transitions. So these are things that are affecting our global health. They could affect our national and local health as well, which is usually the case. Now we're going to go into risk factors. So a risk factor is an exposure or a characteristic that increases the likelihood of developing any disease, a particular disease. So unmodifiable risk factors are the ones that can't be changed. So age, ethnicity, gender, you can't change those for the most part. And even if you are able to change gender, it does not eliminate the risk factor for particular diseases. And there are certain diseases that are very prevalent in men or women, or more likely as you increase in age, or more likely in certain ethnic groups. So then we have behavioral risk factors and modifiable risk factors. These are the ones that I call behavior risk factors. So things like the way you eat, the amount of exercise you get, alcohol and drug use. These are things that can be altered, things that you have within your control. I want you to think about what kind of unmodifiable risk factor you might have. Mine is definitely gender. As a woman, I have a higher risk of heart disease. And then, and I'm looking at my slideshow here, and I can tell that I wrote this a while ago. I do also have, as a small framed woman, I can't change the size of my frame, so I run a higher risk of developing osteoporosis. And then behavioral modifiable risk factors. Think to yourself, what can you modify? What kind of behaviors are you engaging in that might lead you to have a risk factor for a particular disease? I'm using the example of eating too much sugar, although I'm on a sugar-free sabbatical right now, at 17 days now, sugar-free. So I do this because I have a very high genetic propensity to diabetes. So in order to reduce my risk for diabetes, I'm cutting down on my sugar intake. So prevention. These are another set of terms that could be on the final exam. So when we talk about preventions, we break them down into 3 levels. So we have primary prevention. So this is where you're trying to prevent the disease from ever happening. These are things like washing your hands, getting enough sleep, eating right, getting your immunizations. And then secondary preventions are those that are trying to diagnose a disease at an early stage before it has caused any issues. So this is where your screenings come in, your mammograms, your colonoscopies, even blood pressure exams. And then you have tertiary preventions, of which the goal is to reduce complications in those with symptomatic disease in order to prevent death or minimize disability. Best example on this one is in diabetics. They tend to have a very high prevalence of foot problems. So in diabetic individuals, you want to check that individual frequently for foot issues. What kind of primary preventions do you use? What kind of secondary preventions do you use? Think about those. That will be on our discussion question for the week. And I hope you have found this helpful, and I really look forward to working with you all this semester, and have a great week.